Good morning and welcome to the USA Cares podcast. I'm your host, Matt Castor. I am joined as always by Alexis Becker. Good morning, Alexis.
Good morning, Matt.
We are back again and excited. So thankful for all of the listeners to the USA Cares podcast. This podcast just keeps growing. It just keeps going and going and going. I always love to hear back from the people who are listening. It's always interesting to hear kind of what their favorite episodes were, what they took away from those episodes. It's really, really been good. And I'm so encouraged to hear back from people who say, hey, I listened to so-and-so on the podcast, and I really related to that, really meant a lot to me, and hope that keeps going.
Yeah.
So if you are new to the USA Cares podcast, welcome. This is a podcast all about veterans, all about supporting our veteran community, and all about helping those veterans who just need a hand out and have some help up.
Hand up.
So I'm not saying that right,
No.
but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But this is a podcast just meant to offer some encouragement and some hope. And we'd like to have some guests on who can share their stories and talk about how they've overcome different situations. And it's really been one that to us has been very meaningful, and hopefully it will be to you as well. But go ahead after you listen, email me, matt@usacares.org. Let me know what you think about the podcast. Would love to get your feedback, and hopefully you hit that subscribe button and make this part of your weekly routine. Alexis, we've got some people that I want to make sure we mention. There's some companies that are really stepping up right now to help with our surge in veteran needs right now.
Yes.
So some of those had a conversation with a great company out of Alabama called Redline Steel and their CEO, Colin Wayne. This is a guy that is going above and beyond. A combat veteran. Really just wants to help with the tough situation right now.
He was great to talk to.
He was great to talk to. Yep. We just recorded a podcast with him that'll be coming out here real soon.
Yep. So
excited about that. So definitely check out Redline Steel. Some others, Black Rifle Coffee Company. A new partner of ours called Element 502. It's going to be doing some great media work for us. Anderson Windows and Jamba Juice.
Yes.
Talk about Jamba Juice for a second.
So there are, I think, 4 locations out west. So if you're out
California area, right?
California, Utah, Sonoma, Arizona area. So they are running some Facebook fundraisers for us. That's what we have going on right now. Facebook fundraisers. So go to our Facebook page, check out the fundraisers, and drop a couple dollars in one of those.
Don't be afraid to make a donation. That's right.
Jamba Juice is doubling or matching donations on Facebook for up to $10,000. So that is huge. And check out their Instagram pages.
Yep.
They've got some really fun content out there, and they are sharing some of ours. So thank you so much for partnering with us.
And of course, to our good friends at Hardee's and Carl's Jr., who do their Stars for Heroes campaign every year. That'll be coming up soon. Don't forget to participate that. So check out your local Hardee's and Carl's Jr. restaurant. And then finally, big thank you to our friends at the Bourbon Road podcast. This podcast is all about bourbon lovers, and both the hosts are veterans and promote veteran causes, and they've gone out of their way to help us a lot. So definitely check out the Bourbon Road podcast as well.
Wait.
What?
Can't forget.
What?
Our friends here at the Speakeasy Podcast Network.
Go ahead.
I know. Like you said, finally, and we cannot leave them out. Yes, thank you so much.
Robert, she doesn't want to forget you. I don't know. Yeah.
I have to keep you in line sometimes.
So, yeah, absolutely. The Speakeasy Podcast Network really does a great job of making these podcasts work. SpeakeasyNetwork.com, where you can check them out. If you're looking to do a podcast, definitely you want to take a look at them and get going. So, all right. So this is an episode that I've been very excited about. I'm excited about all of them.
Yes.
But this one, I getting into the story, remembering the story from when it happened, really it's powerful. A true story of triumph in the end, and really looking forward to this. So, Jessica Buchanan in 2011 was abducted by Somali pirates, and her story has been one that has been told over and over again, but there's so many facets to it that I think we just needed to hear it directly from her.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited to welcome for the first time to the USA Cares podcast, Jessica Buchanan. Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on. We are honored to have you.
My pleasure.
We have talked about your story so much, and it's one that there's just so many elements to it, and it's so deep in how you tell the story. And I think there's so much hope and encouragement that comes out of it. And that's why I was asking if you'd be on today and just share a little bit about your journey, kind of what you've been through to where you are today. And would you walk us through that a little bit?
Sure. Well, I would say it's an odyssey.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
I like to call it. I think I'm at some point near the end cycle of I like to call it the She-Rose journey.
I like that.
But it's been a trip. I'm telling you what. I'm a teacher by profession, and so I started out my teaching career, 3 lifetimes ago, I guess, at this point, by doing my student teaching experience overseas at an international school in Nairobi, Kenya, which is like all I ever wanted. I was like hashtag living my best life. Loved just being in Africa, volunteering, serving, working with such a cultural environment and the kids. It was awesome. And then they offered me a teaching position to stay on. And so I took it. And about 3 months into my teaching contract, I meet this cute Swedish guy out one night when I'm with my girlfriends. And that was literally, I guess, 15 years ago, Monday.
Wow.
We're coming up on 15 years. Yeah. And we started talking and haven't stopped. And, he was working for a Swedish organization based in Nairobi, but I'm doing governance work and building up capacity with parliaments and government systems in Somalia. And so we got married a couple of years after we met, and he started working for another organization that took him up to be based in Hargeisa, Somaliland, which is a self-declared autonomous region of Somalia. If your listeners are familiar or not maybe so much familiar with Somalia, I always explain it's kind of shaped like a number 7 in a way, the Horn of Africa. And we lived up in the top left hand corner. And there was a lot of development work going on in Hargeisa at the time, a lot of support, type organizations, NGOs, UN had a large presence there. And, relatively safe. And so I moved up there with them. I quit my teaching job and decided to, as any newlywed wife would do, moved up to Hargeisa. And, I'm a teacher, so I always find work, and started out, just having English lessons in the dining room. We had a lot of refugees living actually and working on the compound that we were staying in. And so before I started with the kids, and then before you know it, the dads were coming in on their lunch break. And before you know it, after the work shift, my whole dining room was full of people who were playing memory games and vocabulary games. And it was super fun. And so it just moved into doing some consultancies for the UN. And then before I knew it, I was working full-time for the Danish demining organization as their education advisor, because they had actually not really had anybody with technical education skill sets come in. It was a mine action organization, so they did a lot of mine clearance and a lot of education around that. But I was able to lend my training and my skill set to help, I think, make their messaging more effective and their programming more effective. And essentially what we did, I ended up taking on the East Africa portfolio. So I traveled from our programs in South Sudan and northern Uganda, working with some really interesting people groups and the Karamojong. So just such an interesting work life, such an interesting personal life. I have to say, I really hate it when I'm depicted as this white savior who went in to save African children. Like, that's not what this is about. I had a job that I loved. I felt like I was serving and helping, and that was really important to me. But at the end of the day, I was doing work that I found meaningful.
Well, and I think that's important. I mean, you were there for the right reasons, and you were there to offer support, not to save the world necessarily, but to make life better for a few.
Yeah, I mean, I think, isn't that what we all want when we go to work in the morning?
Absolutely.
We hope we have some impact, and we do. Hopefully, we're doing something we find interesting and fulfilling. Yep. And so, young, naive. I was in my early 30s for sure. I've lived 10 lifetimes, I think, and since that time to where I am now. And I've learned a lot. But it's very important for me to make that clear that I did not go in thinking I was saving the world, because Africa never asked me to come, that was my decision.
Right.
Part of my portfolio included supporting programming in the southern part of Somalia and Galkayo, which is a bit north of Mogadishu, which is probably what the place in Somalia that most people are familiar with.
Right.
And there's a lot still in the security world. There's a lot going on in that area of the world still. And
but it's not like you're wandering around by yourself. It's not like you're taking steps to be careful, and you're doing the right things. And
I mean, we have government financially supported programming in these parts of the world. So everything goes through the United Nations. Everything goes through security protocols. Everything has to be, every action we take has to be, answered and explained to our donors, who were like the British government and USA and, all of the Swedish government. So it's not like I'm out there just running around with my backpack trying to educate Somali children on the, dangers of mines laying around, although that was my job. But there was a very very organized, very serious set of protocols that had to be followed. And so I did those. I had been asked by my Danish colleague, who was one of the program officers down in Galkayo at that project office, to come down and do a training with his staff, which is part of my portfolio, my job. And I just I didn't feel good about it. There were some security concerns. Yeah. So I canceled the training twice. And on the third time, I called him up a couple of days before I was supposed to be down there. And I was like, hey, I just don't feel good about this. I don't want to do this. Look, I've got money in my budget. Let me fly your staff up to my office, and, we'll figure this out. We'll get the work done. But I don't feel good about going down there. And, he was like, look, this is your job. If you can't do it, then we'll find somebody else to do it. And
even though you didn't feel comfortable, didn't feel safe doing it. Yeah.
I didn't feel, and it was kind of like, yes, okay. On one hand, you know what you've signed up for. You do know that you're going into parts of the world that are a bit precarious.
Yeah. But it's kind of a trust your gut moment, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is for me, this is the part of the story that it took me a really long time to unearth and to figure out how to tell. And this is really the story that I'm telling now. You experience something like this, and it takes you the rest of your life to figure out,
I'm sure,
why. So I didn't listen to my gut, and I decided to get on a UN plane and go down. It was a 3-day training in Galkayo. So it's kind of complicated and confusing, but we had two project offices. One was Galkayo is divided by this green line. It basically is a boundary at the time that separated two clans that were often in conflict over natural resources and land and boundaries. So we had to have separate staff, separate vehicles, separate offices in both sides of this town in order to do the work that we had been commissioned to do. So I trained the staff in the northern office, for 2 days. And then we needed to get out of where we were staying, the guest house, and drive across the green line and then switch to a whole new convoy of vehicles with new security staff and then go to the office and train the Southern staff. So that was the plan. I wake up on the third morning and I had like nightmares all night long. Like, and I'm not one of those people that prolifically dreams,
right.
I just never have been. And so that was odd. And all night long, I had these nightmares that our compound had been scaled by pirates.
Wow.
And that we were like being dragged out of our rooms. Like it was really very clear, very violent, very scary. And I got up, I hardly slept. I was like drenched in sweat. I remember going into the bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror and just saying out loud, Jess, do you want to do this?
Yeah.
But then it was like, well, everything's already been prearranged. I'm here. The staff's expecting me.
You don't want to be the one that messes up the whole thing, right?
The whole thing, right? And then what am I going to do? I'm going to go down out and say to Paul, like over breakfast. So I'm not going to go because I had these dreams, like these nightmares all night that we were being kidnapped by pirates. And so I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Like no one's going to do that.
Right. Right.
Isn't that interesting how you talk yourself into something or talk yourself out of something? And you just
it's so relatable.
You let logic you let logic prevail.
We can sit here and say, what were you thinking? But the reality is we've all done that at some point.
A million times. We've done it. I mean, and it doesn't have to be big life-changing things.
Right.
But we let ourselves, let duty and perceived responsibility and other people's opinions and
that's a big one right there. That's a big one.
And expectations.
Yeah.
That's another
expectations.
One. Right.
Fear of what people are going to think about us, what they're going to say about us, fear that we're going to lose our jobs, fear that we're going to lose our income. Like these, or you could just be like, I think this fish is a little off. I probably shouldn't eat it. And then you ignore yourself. And then the next thing you know, you're
maybe
like,
I shouldn't buy sushi from the gas station. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. That's a logical decision to make. But what I'm trying to say is like, that is really my life's work now is the inner, getting to know myself on such a deep, intimate level so that I can hear what my voice is saying, what my gut is saying, because it has been put inside of me to protect me, to keep me alive.
Absolutely.
We all have this, but we're so disconnected from it because of, 10,000 reasons. And this is why I, particularly talk to women about this because, oh my God, we're so disconnected from who we truly are and what we really want and what we want to be doing because we get lost in all the shoulds. Well, I should get down there because the convoy is waiting for me. I should get down there because my staff is waiting for me to come and train them. I should do this. I should do that. And those shoulds marched me into just into hell. So I get in the convoy, we do the crossover over the green line. It's October 25th, 2011. I do the training and we're there till about 3:00 in the afternoon. And, it was fine. It was good. I could hear gunshots going off all day long because apparently we were sort of downtown Galkayo. So we were close to the gun market.
Yeah.
But
I was going to say that's not necessarily all that uncommon.
No, I was used to hearing gunshots and stuff.
Right.
Which you realize how desensitized you get because I'm like, okay, bullets, automatic, ammo going off, not a big deal. And then we have a national security advisor. His name's Abdi Rizak, and he was in charge of getting the convoy together and getting us back over the green line to our convoy to the north office. And then I was scheduled to leave the next morning. So, I'm breathing a sigh of relief. I climb into the back of this Land Cruiser. I'm texting Eric, my husband. I don't know about whatever I'm thinking about. If I'm going to get my workout in, I wonder what we're having for dinner, sending a few work emails, not paying attention. And then 10 minutes into the drive, another Land Cruiser comes around the right side of us and cuts us off. And it had been raining. It's the rainy season in the desert. And so mud just splashes up all over the windows and the windshield. And my first thought, I look up and I can't see anything because we're just covered in mud. And I'm like, God, what a jerk. Who drives like that, right? And then I hear the crack of the butt of an AK-47 on the car hood, like just slamming the car hood over and over. And then several very angry men screaming. And I think they're screaming in Somali. I can't really tell, but I'm assuming. And then the door is pulled open. Abdurizak, the security advisor, is sitting next to me. He's on the right behind the driver because the driver is on the right side there. And this just very angry man. He's dressed in a specialized police uniform. He's carrying an AK. He grabs Abdurizak out and pulls him out of the car. I remember him slamming him in the head with his gun. And then he gets in next to me and puts the gun to my head and starts screaming at the driver to drive. And I'm just like, all of a sudden I everything shuts down in me. Like I can't really think other than two things, which the first thought I'm having is like, this is bad. This is bad. This is bad. Like, this is so bad. I have no frame of reference for it. I have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
Like you automatically start your mind tries to find a point of reference so that you can start making a plan. And like, I had no reference point for this.
Yeah.
And then I kept thinking as we were driving down, like through town, like at 80 miles an hour. And these are not roads that you drive 80 miles an hour on, eventually we're on camel tracks out in the desert. Wow. And we're going up on two wheels. We're slammed back down. We're up on the other side. I remember Paul saying to the driver, like screaming at him, slow down. You're going to kill us now. And you're not going to get what you want because we're all going to die.
Yeah.
And then I kept thinking, like, whatever happens, like however this thing turns out, because right now I'm just hoping and like praying that they just take all of our stuff and kick us out of the car and we can walk to town. Maybe we're just being carjacked. But whatever it is, my life will never be the same from this point forward. Everything has fundamentally changed.
Yeah, there's no exit strategy in that moment. That's an interesting thing. Like there's no getting out. There's no walking away. That's got to be the most helpless feeling.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely out of control. Like you're powerless.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting to see what what is this thing? What is going to happen here?
Yeah.
Yeah, this part in your book, I know. Like I read the book and I can, as you were talking to this, talking about this, I'm just rereading and reliving all of the, just in so vivid detail about, these little things that you remember, I guess after the fact when you're going through and writing the book and you're like, I think I recall you sending a text message, like jokingly, will you find me if I'm going to get kidnapped? And you're like, oh yeah, sure. And you don't think about it. And then in the next instant, here you are living that, joking text message. And then even.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And it's like, the whole conversation of pirates and things is so like conspiratorial. And so you think of like Jack Sparrow and pirates, like whatever, they're not really pirates. They're just gangsters. Right. They're just, because we were not near an ocean.
Yeah.
But at this point, I have no idea like who they are.
Right.
Or what they want.
Right.
And how you
or where they're taking me.
Yeah. And like what they want. And you thought about, are we just going to be robbed? Are we carjacked? And, you hid your wedding ring because they asked for, they were looking for money and you're like, how, and as I was reading your book, I was like, what would I do? Like, I try to put myself in that instance.
Well, and
like,
I keep thinking
what
I would
even
want
do?
to
I don't know.
text my family and let them know what's going on, or how am I going to let people know what's happening?
And you can't, because they're screaming at you in another language. And, like, how did you keep so
No, they took
calm?
our phones like right away. So there was no chance that I was going to be able to contact anybody and let them know what had happened. And it was so, and I'll be honest, it's been a while since I read the book, but I'm pretty sure this part is in there.
Well, you lived it, so.
Yeah,
it's probably
true.
Yeah.
I just remember the guy, he identified his name. He said his name was Ali. And it was so bizarre, like riding around in the desert. We would stop, we would change vehicles, like convoys of vehicles. Then we would drive some more, then we would stop. And then other people would get in the car. Like it was constant shifting and changing. But as the sun was going down, I remember him pulling out, he had a flip phone, and he pulled the flip phone out, and, you know, like Somali sunsets are incredible. Like they're unparalleled. And he pulled his flip phone out and took a picture of the sunset.
What?
And then just looked at me. And I was like, oh my God. Like I am literally, like, all I could think was like, I am heading into something so bizarre. Like it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
And it literally, like, that was like the tip of the iceberg.
Unbelievable. You're probably sitting there thinking this is such a normal thing for this guy that he's going to even stop and take pictures.
Yeah. Or like you want to document this, like you're going to take this picture back and show your kids and be like, here was the night that I kidnapped two, you know, one American and one Danish guy. Like, I don't know. It was so weird. I mean, who knows if he's even still alive, but yeah, it was very, very weird.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So then we, you know, drive into the night and we just keep stopping. And at one point, a new crew of people have climbed into the back of the Land Cruiser, and there were a lot of people and a lot of weapons in this car. At some point, the guy that gets in next to me has a machine gun. Like, I don't know what kind of machine gun, but it's long. So the windows are down. Like, so, you know, you kind of see these pictures of like, these pickup trucks with technicals attached in the bed. And it wasn't like that, but it was in that style where everybody was hanging out the window with machine guns.
Yeah.
And I'm in the middle, and I hear this high pitched voice behind me, and I think it's a woman. And I'm like, that seems very odd to me that there would be a woman involved in this. And I turned around, and it's a 9-year-old little boy.
Unbelievable.
And he's wearing chains of ammo, and he's got an AK, and we made eye contact, and he like did this thing with his head for me to turn around. And he turned out to be one of my most dangerous problems throughout the course of the captivity.
Wow.
Because he was there a lot, and he was traumatized. I mean, he had said he'd killed 3 people already, which I definitely believed him. Like, his eyes were just empty. It was so, so sad. And as a teacher, you know, I'm just like, you think that you can reach anybody if you work long enough and hard enough. And it was really, really sad.
I bet.
Yeah. So, you know, we drive and then stop at some point in the middle of the night, and they force us to get out of the vehicles and tell us to walk into the desert. And I'm the only woman surrounded by men. And I'm thinking, I'm not doing that.
You're thinking the worst. You're thinking the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the worst is I'm going to be gang raped and then shot. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. And so we go back and forth a little bit, and he starts to get really agitated. And then Paul comes over, my Danish colleague, who had also been kidnapped. He says, you know, Jessica, you know, we need to walk. And so we just start walking out into this blackness. It's just dark. There's nothing. There's no ambient light. There's no moon. There's nothing. It's just blank blackness. And I can tell that more people are surrounding us as we walk. And then we walk for like, I don't know, a really long time, probably 20 minutes or so. And one of them tells me to get down on my knees. And I think that, okay, like, this is it. Like, I don't know. I was 32 when this happened. Like, I think I thought a considerable amount of time about like, how am I going to die? And what does it feel like at the end of your life? And what are you thinking about? And then when you're actually at the end, or what you believe to be the end of it, it is insane. Like, what goes through your mind? You know, I'm saying goodbye to Eric. I say goodbye to my father and my sister, my brother. My mom had, at that point, she'd been passed away for about a year. So I was really still in the throes of grieving her. But I also felt very close to her because, I thought, well, you know, I'm a very spiritual person. So I thought, well, you know, she can help me be dignified, like calling out to her, help me be dignified, help me be strong, you know, help me cross over. I don't know how these things work, but I kind of feel like I need your help here as I'm going to cross over because I'm on my knees just waiting for a bullet.
That was something I remember you saying, and when I've heard you tell your story, is that thing of being dignified in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Would you describe that, what you mean by that?
It was really important to me to end my life strong.
Yeah.
Like I did not want to beg. I did not want to be, I don't know, like undignified, disrespect myself.
Yeah.
Like I did not want to be this person who was like, I don't know, like what I thought, but it just felt like anchoring myself in this moment that I had no control over, saying that, like being, I think having the clarity of mind to say goodbye to Eric and to my family, and then to try to communicate with my mother felt like maybe I did have some sort of control, and I just didn't want to lose it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be, I guess I wanted to be present for it.
Yeah.
Because this was the last, and I really, truly believe, like, it's not like I thought I was going to survive this. There was no part of me that thought I was going to survive this. And and I kept thinking, like, I just don't understand. Like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Like, to deserve this? And then the other thought that kept coming to me was, God, man, I put off having kids. I put my job first. I knew I wanted to be a mom, and I never got the chance to become a mother. And if there was a regret that I was going to have, I had two regrets as I was kneeling there on the ground. And one was that I hadn't taken the time to have kids. And the second was that I hadn't listened to my gut.
Wow.
And so, I had like 20 minutes to think about all of this, lucky for me. And then as I'm kneeling down, just waiting for it all to be over, wondering, like, you wonder, like, is it going to hurt? Like, what's this going to feel like? Is it going to be fast? Like, I hear one of them go, sleep. And he just like, just sleep. And he points down at the ground, and like someone knocks me over onto the ground, and they just want us to lay down in the dirt and go to sleep.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. That the emotionally taxing, having all those thoughts running through your head, and then just being like, go to sleep. Mm-hmm. Can't do that. How do you turn your brain off?
How do you do that? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you know what I did? I passed out. I think this, like, your mind and your body start working together on autopilot, and they know that you need protection and you need to restore. And so I did. I passed out for like 2 hours or something from the shock of it all. And when I woke up,
physically and mentally exhausted at this point.
You're just, I mean, you're in such like fight, flight, or freeze response. I think that I probably just froze.
Yeah.
Essentially. And everything shut down.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So then the nightmare comes back 2 hours later when you're hoping it was just a bad dream.
Yeah. Yeah. That was very bizarre to like wake up and be like, oh yeah, that's what happened. And I'm still here. And so, the first week was about trying to just stay alive and trying to get water, trying to, ask for food. We kept asking for, to call our organization or to call our family.
Yeah.
And, we just like sat there in the desert on a mat. There was no like taking us to a structure or,
that's kind of
putting
confusing.
us in a room.
There's no like village. There's no anything like that. You're just out in the middle of the desert.
Camping essentially, but you're not, like, because you don't have anything. Like, you're just like, I had a mat to sit on, but you'd sit under a tree during the day where they told me to go, or sometimes like a bush. Like, I couldn't even sit up. I just have to lay there all day and then pull the mat out into the open at night. For some reason, they would not let us sleep under trees at night. And I don't know, I've never been able to figure that out. I don't know what that was about.
Is there wildlife in, I don't know about, animals and things out there in the night.
I mean, I was just talking to somebody about that the other day. We were talking about scorpions and I was like, I killed a couple scorpions in my time. Like, thank God for Birkenstocks. I've always
and they're not like the little bitty ones. Those are like the big.
They're big. They're big and scary. Some snakes, but not too much. It's not like
a mountain
like
lion
if you were in Kenya and you had to worry about lions or hippos coming after you or something. No, it's not like that. But it's just nothing. It's empty. The desert is vast and it's empty. And you might see a camel herder coming by, or like, and that was like the big highlight of the day, to like have something to look at and watch, or some goat herders come through. But for the most part, it's just still.
Are you understanding what they're saying this whole time? Or are you guys getting bits and pieces? Nothing?
Oh, no.
Nothing?
No. I mean, I had like taken Somali lessons, but it's a really difficult language to learn for me anyway. And I think by the end of the ordeal, I was starting to like pick up on, okay, we're not moving now. We're waiting for somebody's mom to drop off food, or, like I could like figure out kind of what was happening, because that's the hardest part for us is, well, I don't know. I guess it depends. I've never been a hostage in another situation, so I only have my experience, but we moved a lot. Like we moved 50 to 60 times throughout the course of the 93 days. So, maybe it's the middle of the night and you would have finally fallen asleep, which sleep was really important because it was really my only escape from my reality. And they'd get in your face and scream, standing, standing, standing. And that meant that we needed to get up and get whatever we had, like our bottles of water and a blanket or whatever, and get in the Land Cruiser because we had to leave. And sometimes it felt like a real emergency. I think we were being followed, or they thought we were being followed. Yeah. Maybe they thought it was a military thing. I never really knew.
But that would
happen a lot.
Through this whole ordeal, they're also using drugs a lot, right? They're also not quite in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, they're using one drug, cat. I don't know. It has different pronunciations. Essentially, it's this long stem of green leaves that have like a narcotic effect. So they chew it. It's a cultural practice in that part of the world. It's very social and communal, and typically men will, and even women will sit together in groups with other women and chew it. But they chew the leaf, like they just pull the leaves off the stem and chew them, and it makes like a paste. Okay. And then it releases the narcotic effect, but then it's really bitter and super, super dry and pasty. So they have to counteract it with like a sweet cardamom tea, which I learned how to make that while I was out there. And I was like, oh my God, like gobsmacked it. I think it was like 6 cups of sugar in one like tea kettle. And I was like, oh my God, no wonder everybody's teeth are rotting out, because they're like sitting there chewing these leaves and then drinking this tea. And I think it keeps you from being hungry. So, there's not a lot of food, and like, it's just one of those things that, it's definitely, with any drug, right?
Yeah.
It's good in the moment, but it's got severe repercussions on the society and the economic situation and everything. So, but every morning the chat runner would come out. That was the one thing. And it was so interesting because it didn't matter where we were. That chat runner found us.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. And, if the chat wasn't good that day, then God help us all, because Paul and I were going to pay the price for that. So.
Wow. And pay the price, you mean, are they physically abusive at this point? Are they just screaming at you? What is it? How are they treating you?
Like all of the above. I think that they were rougher on Paul than they were on me. Yeah. But I definitely got knocked around a lot, threatened a lot, like I remember I was freaking out one morning because I felt like I had a urinary tract infection coming on, and I'm like, I need toilet paper. I need, or some clean water. I am a woman out here. I need some things if I'm not going to get sick and die. And I just remember telling like the leader of the group, Abdi, and his response was to put his AK in my face and scream at me, "Do you want to die today?"
Wow. And,
like you get so like just filled with rage inside because you're like, I just need a roll of toilet paper, man. Yeah. Like I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything to you. Like, I don't know why this is happening. And, at that point you have to realize you're just a commodity.
Yeah.
Like you're just a pawn. This is not personal. Like you're a dollar sign. And I think too, I had a lot of time to sit there and think, which is also a really profound experience to be able to have nothing going on, like nothing, like not a pen, not a piece of paper, not one responsibility other than just to survive and stay alive. So you think through a lot of things. And it's just not black and white. Yeah. Right. Like these are bad guys and I'm the good guy and, whatever. It's very complicated in terms of why things like this happen and the corruption and the lack of resources and lack of education and, like all the reasons that I felt like the issues that I wanted to work on in the first place. It was just a direct correlation to why we should still be supporting working.
It's an interesting contrast because it sounds like you're so angry at these people and feel so bad for them at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is really strange.
And bad for me.
Yeah. All around.
It's a very emotionally complicated
it seems
situation to be in. And there's no answer and it's still complicated. Like I can never, like it's very messy. Like I think I'm suspicious of the conversation that ends with a neatly tied up resolution because it's always going to be complicated and I'm always going to carry that with me. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, these people are human beings too.
You think about the movies we all watch. There's always a happy ending, right? They always realize that what they're doing is wrong and just turn it all around and you all walk off into the sunset. And that wasn't going to happen this time.
No. And I'm grateful to be here and to be alive. And I don't want to like come across as having Stockholm syndrome or something because I really don't. But I also have tried to look at this from a human perspective. Yeah. And it's, it's difficult, and you just have to, I guess, just continue to stay open to the conversation and how things continue to evolve. So,
one of the things I want to mention, we keep referencing this book, your book. It's called Impossible Odds, and this is a New York Times bestseller. Really a powerful, powerful read. If anybody gets a chance to read this, I would highly encourage it. It's hard to form the words. You're reading it going, I just can't imagine being in this situation. And I hope I would handle it as well as she did.
I was reading at night and just like page turning. I'm like, I can't stop reading.
Yeah.
But I had to.
Unbelievable. So you're making it through just day by day. I guess that's your goal, right? Is just one day. It's the kind of the cliche, one day at a time.
Well, sometimes it's just 1 minute at a time. Because it feels like you're going to lose your mind sometimes. And you don't know, how long you're going to be out there. And I think that I believe at one point Amnesty International defined the word torture as being detained without like an end. Yeah. An end date or something. I'm not doing that very articulately, but you get the idea.
Right.
And I would say that is torture. To be sitting in a place like if you got to do this for 390 days. Okay. I mean, that stinks, but at least you can like keep notching off like, okay, I made it to 388. Now we're at 372. Right. But when you don't know how long this thing is going to last and that they've asked $45 million for a ransom demand.
How did you know that?
So enter a character called Jabril.
Yeah.
Who knows what he was or, but what I was told was that he ran an NGO in Mogadishu. He did have pretty good English, so I don't know how he acquired that, but he was scummy and super scary, but also our lifeline because he was the only one who we could get any information, whether it was solid information or not. I don't know, but it was something. And so you believe anything you get because that's all you've got.
But he's kind of this sleazy character, right?
So sleazy, so gross. I was really afraid of him for my own personal safety.
Yep.
There was definitely a lot of personal space issues, if you will. And so I hated it when he was there, but he was also the only way we got any information. And he said that they had started the demand at $45 million, which he thought was crazy too, because he's like, these are two people. They're not a cargo ship out in the ocean. No one's going to pay $45 million for two people. And I think the word was that our people, our organization did have kidnapping and ransom insurance.
Yeah.
And so they started negotiations right away and set up a crisis management team. They countered at $20,000. So when you're the one sitting there, you're like, wow, I'm going to be here for a really long time.
And you're trying to work out what's that middle ground between 45 million and 20,000 that are we ever going to get to?
And you also talk yourself into believing so interesting because it's you sit there and you think I'm a human being. I matter. I matter to my family. I matter to my organization. People will mortgage out their houses to get me out. People will do this. Of course the insurance company wants us out by Christmas.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're not going to let us sit here over Christmas.
Wow.
Oh, it turns out, no, it does not work that way. But on the flip side, the reason I got out was because I'm a human being and I matter.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's this double, I don't know, it's a double meaning in a way.
And I'm sure it had to give you some hope when you heard that dollar amount. I'm sure it had to give you some hope knowing at least people are working on this. People are talking about this.
Yes. But I was also oh my God, this is going to take a really long time.
Yeah. I'm sure.
I'm in this for the long haul. I mean, people will say to me oh my goodness, 93 days. Why didn't they come in and get you in the first week? And I'm oh, it does not work that way. 93 days is nothing.
Yeah.
I could have sat there very easily for 3 years, 4 years. I could have been married off. I could have had
sold off
babies and sold off. I mean, you have no idea how infinitely lucky I am.
Wow.
I have no idea how infinite, and I can't go there. I can't think about that.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah.
And I heard you on another podcast, and I think the most powerful moment when you're describing sitting in the desert and you saw a little boy wearing a bracelet. You remember that? Can you describe that?
Yeah, well, that was Abdullahi. I met him the first night. He was the boy in the back of the Land Cruiser.
That was him. Okay.
So that was him. Yeah. And he came over to terrorize me one morning because he was bored. And that usually meant he had a knife or he carried an AK. He had a fully loaded AK-47 at his disposal.
At 9 years old.
And he would be basically want me to move from where I was sitting over 2 inches. This power struggle, right?
And boy things.
Yeah. And that was that's the thing that made him so scary is he didn't understand what he was doing. He didn't know, eventually he just disappeared. And I think that they finally understood, he's a liability to us because he's just going to lose it and kill our hostages. And then we're out all this money that we've invested in this business endeavor and we won't have anything to show for it. But he came out one day and I realized he had this red silicone a bracelet around, those awareness bracelets people wear for different causes. I'm oh, that looks really familiar. And he comes over closer to me and I'm hey, let me see your bracelet. It was one of my products that I had designed. and distributed in all of the local villages for mine risk education. So the message on it was written in Somali, but it was like, if you see something shiny, don't pick it up because it could hurt you. Because one of our big platforms was talking to kids about, because these, a lot of these communities that we worked in were post-Civil War, even like 20 years, but there were still leftover landmines and UXOs and things laying around, and kids would pick them up and they would explode, and they'd be maimed, they'd go blind, they could be killed. And so that was a big platform messaging for us. And I even now I just get chills thinking about it, like that feeling of realization that, oh my God, we've been working in the communities that have been devising this plan all along, and like feeling very betrayed, very, that was a low point.
Yeah.
And then it brought on like this crisis of like morals and values and what do I believe and what was I doing here? And maybe it's better off if you just don't help anybody and you don't serve and you don't. So I had a lot to work through while I was sitting under that tree, taking in that information. I think it's important to note that this was not my duty station. I was visiting, so I don't actually believe that I was a target. I think Paul was the target.
Okay.
And I just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Wow. Yeah. So it's so complicated to work through. You're there to help somebody who then turns on you. That's a rough one. But like you said, he's young enough, hopefully, to not understand it all. But the others did. The others certainly did.
Yeah. And then you're like, well, maybe we shouldn't be there. They didn't ask us to come.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's a very big conversation around international development and aid.
So the ransom amount's been put out there. You're hearing rumors of this from Jabril. And what comes next?
Just hurry up and wait.
Just a lot of sitting around and being threatened, right?
Yep. Wondering how much longer it's going to take, trying not to go insane. I did like a life review where I looked at every single memory I could possibly think of that had ever happened to me in my life. And then I started making plans and for the future and what I was going to do and how I was going to make some changes. And, all of those things that you will find is a very common practice for people who are in captivity. And learning my captors, sitting and watching them and learning how they move and who's in a good mood, who's in a bad mood, when I can ask for some clean water, when I should keep my mouth shut, when I can even ask to go use the bathroom, which is basically just behind a bush. But, like learning human behavior of my captors, I think, is what really kept me safe and kept me alive. And again, it was another practice in honing my intuition, because I had to really sit there and listen to, like, be quiet and get still and take in my surroundings and make very calculated decisions.
Yeah.
Just to ask for like a bottle of water. So, we found a stride, if you will.
Yeah.
Where you've kind of fallen into a routine. You've learned who you can ask things from and who you should stay away from. I kept taking things in increments. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, about how you just like do the next thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I would, sometimes they would let me take walks like around the perimeter of the camp. And so I'd be like, okay, I can get through like 7 more days. And I remember the last walk I took, I was like, okay, I can do this for another 30 days and then we'll reevaluate, but let's get through the next 30 days. What are we going to do? How are we going to stay safe? How are we going to stay sane? Let's come up with a plan. Let's make a work plan for yourself. Like,
how do
30
you
days.
how do you not just lash out at them? Like, don't you hit that break? Everybody, you're obviously a good-hearted person. You've got, you want to help people. You're there for the right reasons, but everybody at some point hits that moment when you haven't had enough sleep, when you haven't had enough food, you don't feel good, and you're mad, where you just snap? How do you keep from just lashing out at them when they stick that gun barrel in your face? I mean, how do you just not get angry?
Oh, I did.
You're yelling
but
back
I would
at
do
them at
it.
that point. Okay.
No, because I mean, there were a couple of times when I was like, you're so stupid. Like, you're so stupid. Do you understand how stupid you are? And you're never going to get $38 million. Like, yeah. And I would hedge in that direction. But basically what I would do is I would ask to use the toilet and I would go stand behind a thorn bush and I would scream. I a lot of times I couldn't even like scream out loud, but I would scream like inside. It's like one of those scenes in a movie where somebody is like ready to lose it and they get in their car and they're slamming the steering wheel. I just did that on a regular basis, like in private where no one could see me. But I think that's also has that like swallowing that rage and that anger is did a number on my body. I ended up a couple years after getting out with thyroid cancer, which I think it's no coincidence that the cancer is like right here where my voice is.
Yeah.
My voice was stifled.
Yeah.
Right. On so many levels.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to live. And I would sit there and think, man, if I were so-and-so, like someone who I knew how to, I'm not like super quick tempered. So like if I were so-and-so, oh man, they'd be dead by now.
Yeah.
Like,
I can see
like
that.
actually, I think my personality is one that I do make a very good hostage because I'm very introspective and I'm always trying to pull meaning from things and I'm not quick tempered. And so I don't know. It's weird to say, but I think I actually handled it pretty well.
Sounds like
but yeah, there are moments where I was like, if I knew that I would survive it, I would rip his freaking face off. I
bet.
But what do you can't do anything. It's the ultimate of having to restrain yourself because you want to survive.
Yeah. Wow. And I'm sure you don't want to create a worse situation for Paul.
Yeah.
He's a man for himself at this point.
Oh, that's great.
No. You do. You're all you have. You're all you have is each other. And in that moment, you have to let bygones be bygones. Right. So, for instance, though, like on day 27, he finally like confessed that he did know there was a direct kidnapping threat. Wow. He just hadn't divulged that because he was afraid I would cancel my training. And I didn't put that in the book because I wasn't ready to talk about that. I think I was still very much in the state of like protecting, but I'm not there anymore. That's very much a part of me speaking my truth.
That's another element of the total betrayal of the whole story.
Yeah. And you can't do anything about that in that moment because you're like, I don't know. He might be the last person I ever talk to again.
Wow.
And so, but you can better believe I was mad when I got out.
Oh, I can't imagine.
So, yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's been a journey.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The healing journey is a long one. So, I mean, it's just little bits and pieces, I'm sure.
It's never going to be over. Like, this is my life's journey.
Yeah.
So
fast forward a little bit with me, if you would. Mm-hmm. So how does you get to this point where you go to sleep one night, situation normal, and then you start hearing noises and you start hearing things happening around you that you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So I had gotten a really bad urinary tract infection that was moving into a kidney infection. And I'd had my last proof of life call on January 16th. I didn't know it was January 16th then, but I do now. And we are like at January 24th now. And I had told them how sick I was and that I didn't think I was going to survive if they didn't do something. They needed to get me out. And I went to bed that night and was talking to my mom. I did that. I had this ritual of talking to her every night before I would go to sleep. And there are two stars that come out at the same time every night, like two bright stars that I didn't know until I spent all this time out there in the open. And so I named one for her and I was telling her like, look, here's the deal. Like miss you, but I am not ready to meet you. And I need you to go and tell God that he needs to go and do something and get me out of here because I'm not going to make it. Like I'm hallucinating at times. My fever is really high. I'm in a lot of pain. I can't really walk much unassisted anymore. So I wake up, drag myself to, I asked to use the toilet, which is how toilet was the only word that we used to be excused, whether we had to use the toilet or not, but they knew that word. So there were 9 guys on the ground that night, and always at least one of them was awake, keeping watch and guard, but there was no one awake. Like everybody was passed out, which I thought was really odd. But I didn't think much about it. I needed to be sick. Actually, I was super sick. Got up, said the word toilet, did that a couple of times. No one woke up, kind of dragged myself to the nearest bush, do what I need to do, come back to my mat, lay down. And then I can hear it. Like, we were like in these little sand pit kind of things in the middle of tall brush. And I could hear like brush breaking. And I thought it was like an animal or something coming out, or bugs. And I like got up, tried to get up, shake my blanket out, nothing. And then like 30 seconds goes by after I settle back in. And Dair, we called him Helper. He was actually kind of a friend, I guess that you would say, at least a friendly pirate.
Right.
He always slept next to me when he was there. I think he did it to try to protect me, actually. And he jumped up, and I couldn't see him, but I could hear that he was terrified.
Yeah.
And he starts screaming to the other 8 guys on the ground to get up, and everybody, they'd had their chat, like they're coming down off their high. Everybody's drowsy. Yeah. It's hard to wake up. And then the night just erupts into automatic gunfire, like just like rounds of bullets. And I hear Dair hit the ground. I'm hearing like the pirates have gotten their wits about them. They've got their guns. They're firing in all directions. I'm seeing like sparks of light. And all I can think is, you know what? It's been a good run, and you did the best you could do, but you're not going to survive this.
Yeah.
Because this is probably Al-Shabaab, or it's another group. And I knew I didn't have the energy to try to learn another group and try to survive being kidnapped again. And God only knows, like, it's better the devil, right? Like at least I knew what I was familiar with my situation. Now being moved into something else where I was going to have to do the whole thing over again. And I was so sick. I was like, I'm not going to make it. Yeah. And I tried to like press myself down into the ground, right? Like try to make myself invisible. It didn't really occur to me to try to put my shoes on and run, because I thought I'm going to get hit by crossfire if I get up. And then I feel someone's hands on my legs and on my shoulders, and they're shaking me. And I'm trying to pull the blanket over me, like, as if that's going to protect me or something. And I have my hands in front of me like this.
Yeah.
And then because I can't see anything, it's just so dark, and I'm still hearing just awful sounds all around me. And I hear this young American man's voice, and he knows my name, and he says, "Jessica, it's okay. We're the American military. You're safe now. We're going to take you home." And I like pull the blanket away from my face, and I can sort of see like there's a lot of black figures and like masks maybe. And he helps me sit up, and all I can say over and over again is, "You're American." Wait, you're American?
What are you doing here?
You're American. Yeah. Like what? Where am I? Like, what is going on? And he kind of chuckles, and he gets down on my level, and he has medicine, and he has a clean bottle of water. And he's like, "We've been watching you since like day one, and we know how sick you've been. And you're going to make it out of here. You're going to be okay." And so, one of them asks me if I know where my shoes are, and I don't know what my name is barely. So he's like, "Okay, we're just gonna I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to put you over my shoulder and I'm going to take off running. So just hold on tight. And so that's exactly what he does. And we just like take off through the desert, like fireman hold style. Right. You know, and I remember very clearly thinking, I'm a school teacher from Ohio. Like, how is this my life right now?
I'm sure.
Like, how is this my life?
Yeah.
And he puts me he runs for a while and puts me down.
Yeah.
And there seems to be like light. I can sort of see what's happening. Of course, my question is, where's Paul? Did he make it out okay? And he's sitting there to my left and he's like, Jessica, do you know who these guys are? No. Oh, no, no one had really identified. And he's like, this is SEAL Team 6. These are the guys that got Osama bin Laden. I'm just like,
oh my gosh.
I don't have any idea. Like, cause I need to make it very clear that never in my wildest dreams did I ever entertain the thought of a military intervention. Like I thought I knew that like military rescues happen, but I figured they only happen for military folks, right? Like you don't really, the Captain Phillips had happened like about, I think a year before or something, but I didn't really pay attention to it because he's a ship captain. Like, you know, it didn't. Yeah. So it just didn't ever cross my mind. And every once in a while, Paul would be like, oh, send in the Marines. And I would be like, Paul, you know, you're from Denmark. There are like 3 million people in your country. I'm from America. There are 350 million people.
Right.
Like no one knows we're here. No one cares. Like I was like not the Pollyanna of the situation at all. It would drive me nuts because he'd be like, why isn't anybody coming in after us? And I'm like, because no one's coming in after us because we're aid workers. Like that's not what happens. And then like the reality of, oh my gosh, like in the aftermath of finding out that President Obama was briefed every single day about my whereabouts and my well-being and the fact that he is the one who ordered the rescue. And you know, it's been 10 years since the rescue and I've learned so much and I've met so many people who are, I mean, hundreds, thousands of people involved in this rescue planning and operation. And I mean, he even called my father.
That's crazy.
On the phone to tell him that I had been rescued and that I was coming home. You know, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know if I would have ever described myself as like patriotic before, but man, I sure am now.
Well,
like it means so much.
What you've done to champion the military since being out, since being back home, since being free is amazing. And what you do with the Navy SEAL Foundation, I think is so admirable. And just your respect for these people who risk their lives to save yours.
Oh my God. And I mean, what is that? Like,
who does that?
Right. You know, like, and I've had the chance to, some of them have become my very good friends and I'm friends with their wives and I'm watching their children grow up. And, to think that 20 or 30 men who, more than that, but, you know, as soon as they found out about my situation, started running through exercises and practicing and just waiting for the word to come out and rescue this girl that they didn't know. Like it was no consequence to them whether or not I survived or not. But because they have committed themselves to service, I mean, this is the ultimate act of service, is it not? And that's why we call it the service, right? Like, and from someone who feels like they're just paper pushing to the person who jumped out of the helicopter and carried me out, it's all like the biggest team effort. We all had to do our parts in order for this to be a success, because the bottom line is that the reason it took so long is because every star had to be aligned. Every condition had to be perfect, because these rescue missions aren't typically successful, like because there are so many variables that you cannot control, even the best of the best, like the U.S., special forces. Like if there had been another pirate there, I'm sure there was one particular guy that if he had been there that night, he would have just shot me. Mm-hmm. He would have known what was going on and he would have just shot me. Mm-hmm. And no one could have controlled that. Right. Yeah. So it's just like, how can I not? Like, yes, I'm grateful to be here and to be alive, but also, you know, my brother's in the special forces. Now he's a Green Beret, active duty Green Beret. Like I think about that all the time. And cause I can see the personal side too, of like the toll that it takes on their families and the toll that it puts on my dad and me, and the worry and the, you know, the being gone and the raising kids alone. And I mean, just from a personal side, like, thank you to every single person out there who's active duty or a veteran. Like, your service, I hope and pray you feel does not go overlooked, because I get to sit here today alive and well. I've had 2 kids. I've got a 9-year-old little boy and a 7-year-old little girl. I get to work and do what I love because of your service and your commitment. It's remarkable.
Wow. It's incredible. So much respect for you and how you've come through this situation, but you've used it to encourage and inspire other people. And I told you before this, I'm a dad of all girls. So to see a strong woman who has a voice is so encouraging and makes me want to say, look at her. And I think that's remarkable. So I know you've got another project coming up, right? So your book, Impossible Odds, has been out, has done very well. And now maybe number 2 is on the way?
It is. I'm working on, it's a memoir / manifesto / self-help. And it's really geared toward women, those strong women who have somewhere along the way abandoned themselves and are walking, they're journeying back to the mountain. It's called Deserts to Mountaintops. So for me, it's literal and metaphorical. But you know, this 10-year journey that I have walked, going to the mountaintop for me, of getting to know myself and reclaiming my voice. And it's like, once I found my voice again, you cannot shut me up. So I'm taking everything that I've learned and putting it into like a guidebook essentially. And then, you know, I work with women in various different offerings to help them break into the professional speaking circuit, get their memoirs written, and tell their stories and really reclaim their voice. And then I also have my podcast. We should talk about that. And that can go from like super emotional to super irreverent and everywhere in between. But it is all about the voice, right? And the fact that if we don't talk about things, then they continue to stay stigmatized and people suffer because they feel isolated and alone. And, you know, that was a part of my survival experience, is what I call the aftermath of surviving the trauma, is like trying to figure out where you fit into the whole scheme of the world again and how to rebuild your life. And I felt very isolated and very lonely because I didn't talk to anybody about it. And so I think that if we just share our stories, then we find people who get us and we can help people in the process. And that's why we survive.
That's exactly right. And that's what Alexis and I hope for this podcast too, is just to give people that platform to be able to talk about those things. Talking about things like veteran suicide is not a fun topic. It's not something we look forward to, but it's something that needs to be addressed. And it's something that we've got to get out there and help people understand. Things 100%. Like PTSD and mental illness, and these things are real and they're uncomfortable and they're awkward. But to have somebody who sits down behind a microphone for the first time and explains their journey with mental health or their journey with recovery, and see this weight lifted off them when they start actually getting it out and talking about it. That's what we want.
I mean, I really believe that speaking your truth is the only thing that will set you free. Yep. And mental health and PTSD and suicide, like all of that, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, you know, it's so pervasive. It's too pervasive to be polarized. So we have to start just openly having these conversations. And I feel like we keep saying that. And so I'm like, just so grateful that you're opening up your microphones and your platform to do that. Thank you.
Jessica, this has been a real honor to have you. And you're now part of the USA Cares family, and we're glad to have you. And I hope we can talk again. But thank you so much for being here. It really means so much to us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Alexis, we're going to keep moving forward. We've got a lot of great guests coming up. This has been
I could
remarkable.
Talk to her all day.
I know.
Or just
absolutely.
listen all day.
I'm just kind of stunned. Mm-hmm. For me to be speechless is hard.
I know.
Yeah, you don't have to agree so quickly. But really, this has been incredible. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make this USA Cares podcast part of your routine. We're going to keep bringing on great guests. I hope, I'm kind of speechless after this. So
let's hope that rolls into the rest of the day.
We just hope it keeps, thanks for that. But make sure you tune in every week. We're going to keep bringing guests on to share their stories just like this, to keep talking about those things in their life that have inspired them, have inspired other people, have motivated them to do more with their lives. And so big shout out to the Navy SEAL Foundation and the great work that they're doing. Just so thankful for all of our service members, and that's why we're here, is to honor them. So thanks again. Tune in next week, and we look forward to being with you again soon.